Hello there. I'm really delighted to be back at Radio Festival, although obviously I'd much rather be in a room with you all, looking at all your smiling faces. But sadly we are in lockdown for a second time, and I think we can all agree that radio has been a fantastic friend in the room certainly during the first lockdown, and we know that's going to happen again. So let's just take a moment to look at some of the highlights of what happened as soon as the country went into lockdown on the 23rd of March.
Where challenges arise, we will overcome them.
Wherever we think the government's getting it right, we are going to support them.
Derek would say more than anyone, life is about living and laughing. You've got to have a bit of that too.
I'm very glad to have been able to join you. Can you see everybody?
You have the opportunity to change and to do things better.
Through the radio, we can all talk to each other and maybe help each other out.
2 very special programmes on Classic FM with the Prince of Wales.
Well done on a fantastic first day back at school. Love from Mrs. Dodd, head teacher.
We got these Chris Moyle Show face masks made. We're all delighted with them.
It's the time to ride the wave and be that difference and be that change that we've been longing for such a long amount of time.
Black Lives Matter, that's the message, that's the fight. The fight against racism and not against white.
All new Kiss breakfast with your boys, Jordan and Perry.
Are we ready to try and give away £5,000 cash?
Oh my goodness! So through to the next round.
Here at Union Jack Radio, we love beer gardens.
Notting Hill Carnival on Kiss.
Today, we celebrate 10 years of...
Oh my God, it's One Direction!
You are a key worker, your girlfriend is a key worker. I'm opening number 10.
Oh, make me a millionaire!
Tommy!
No!
This is Hits Radio Pride, an entirely new station for the LGBTQ plus community, kicking things off. It is Ollie Alexander from Years and Years.
I feel very honoured. I've been a part of this historic moment.
So today I want to talk about radio, a force for good. I think we all knew in the radio industry that we were experiencing fantastic listening figures as soon as the country went into lockdown. So we wanted to explore a little bit more about those themes. We've done 2 reports I want to talk to you about today. You can find either of them on the Radiocentre website. The first is Bounce Back and Beyond, and the second is Radio, a Force for Good. So let's take a look at what listeners were actually doing during this time. Well, I think, again, it didn't surprise any of us to know that 85% of commercial radio listeners said they were listening sometimes the same, but usually for more hours a day. And then if we looked at the kind of reasons for that, I think it's pretty self-evident that obviously a lot more of us were working from home. It's something that we'd never really done in such numbers before. And of course there were many key workers who were tuning into their local radio stations to find out critical information about travel, transport, all the rest of it. So we could see some reasons who the new people were, or the reasons why people were listening for longer, but why did they say they were tuning in? And this one's quite interesting to me. I mean, so obviously radio is great company. It can be company during a time when some people were feeling isolated at home. It's a source of fantastic trusted news. Again, of course, we all know that. But one of the things that really leaps out to me here is it makes me feel happy. And I really don't think we should underestimate that in this time. We're going to come on to talk about mental health later on. But makes me happy is a really important part of what commercial radio delivers in people's lives. So there are some of the reasons why people said they were tuned in a little bit more. Now we know that commercial radio is a fantastic source of news, delivers public value to its 36 million listeners every week. And it's one of the reasons why advertisers flock to it in their thousands. And during this period, commercial radio responded to its listeners' desires by putting on longer bulletins and more frequent bulletins. So despite not necessarily because of regulation, but just responding to what listeners actually wanted at that time, we saw more and longer bulletins throughout the period of lockdown, and something we anticipate will probably be happening right now again. We talked about trust earlier. Radio consistently scores at the top of the lists for which media do I trust more. I think this one is really interesting. This is from a Radiocentre report a couple of years ago, but it remains pretty consistent with all findings that radio and television consistently come out highest for news I can trust. And social media is down there at really on a pretty low bar in terms of what people feel they can trust in their news consumption. And that again is echoed by this report, which it's a survey that the European Commission does every year, and every year for the last 10 years, radio has scored as the most trusted medium in Europe. And that's something that we really pride ourselves in delivering to our audiences, particularly at this time, not only because we're in a pandemic, but also because of the prevalence of fake news. So radio, really trusted source of news. I think when people talk about public value and delivery, they tend to just think that in terms of commercial radio, that what we do is in the news and information that I've just been discussing. But I think it's about a lot more. We broadcast to a very diverse audience, first of all. We score very highly on harder to reach audiences, like very highly on a BAME audience score, and also C2s, Ds and Es. We've got some interesting research coming out on just this sort of area in a few months' time, so I definitely look out for that one, but that's just a bit of a trailer for now. And yes, so more than just news, we deliver to fantastic diverse audiences, and we do lots more. So there's charitable work, this is Global and Bauer, but of course we all know that every single radio station, from the very big to the very small community stations, are always raising money for their local audiences. It's one of the things that gives them such a great connection with their local audiences. We at Radiocentre are incredibly proud to have initiated the Mental Health Minute, which is in its third year, was broadcast during the pandemic, the biggest one ever. So we united the whole of radio, BBC, community, hospital, prison radios, in one moment, just taking a moment to think about mental health. We do this in collaboration with the Royal Foundation, and we're really delighted by the support it's received and continues to receive, as of course mental health becomes a real issue as people are feeling isolated in their homes.
Maybe now is the time for us to stop and to really listen.
You are connected to 20 million people by the power of radio for this year's Mental Health Minute.
Just starting a conversation on mental health could make all the difference.
Being able to talk about how you're feeling.
If you do have the courage to speak about it.
All of us have moments when life is tough.
Right now, you are one of 20 million people listening.
Because no matter who you are or what station you listen to,
this is a significant moment.
We're living through a time which is taking its toll on everyone in different ways.
Right now, we all need each other more than ever.
Whether you're united in applause on a Thursday night.
If you're struggling, it's important to talk about it. Because we're all connected.
And you are not alone.
You're also quite instrumental, along with many people in this room and beyond, in setting up the Audio Content Fund. And that has been responsible for delivering a huge variety of fantastic content across commercial radio. And here are some of the examples of that on screen now. We at Radiocentre were really delighted to have done some content about supporting, how to support yourself through this crisis, in giving some really great tips on mental health, and that's what we're going to show you now.
Radiocentre has teamed up with the Royal Foundation's Heads Together initiative and 10 leading mental health charities to create a new series offering advice and activities to support listeners' mental well-being.
It's important we talk about our mental health right now, and today we hear from Heads Together supporter Katie Piper on how to get those conversations started.
When we're going through a difficult time, not quite feeling ourselves, it can be difficult to tell others how we're doing. But the more we talk about it and ask others how they're doing, the more normal the conversations will start to feel. And those conversations, they can be the first step to better mental health. So next time you're chatting to someone close to you, just let them know how you're coping. And remember to ask them how they're doing too.
For more tips and advice, or if you need mental health support, visit headstogether.org.uk.
And I mentioned before that, you know, we're very interested in making sure that our industry, as it broadcasts to a fantastically diverse audience, also attracts the best talent from across the biggest range of voices that we know are out there and listening to radio and really interested in radio. So we've teamed up with Creative Access to do a series of masterclass events. This one on stage, one we did in Manchester in the BBC Media Centre there, and we carry on, because one of the points of those is to try and get as much new talent into the industry as we can, because no matter how great we might be now, we will never be great in the future unless we continue to attract that talent. And here is one of the recent masterclasses that we gave. Obviously we'd switched to virtual like everything else, and this is Margarita Taylor talking to one of our amazing presenters who helped us out with that event.
What would be your advice when it comes to interviewing? Leanne, if I could start with you.
So I'll say like two things. If you're interviewing someone that is well known, I would have a look at their previous interviews and kind of look at all the things that they've like usually say, because you'll probably see that there's a pattern, like the stories that they usually tell and the things they usually say. Then when you've established that, kind of think about what things you want to pull out of them they don't usually talk about within reason. So that's what I'd say if you're interviewing someone well known.
And of course I can't talk about new talent without talking about the Young Audio Awards, a fantastic industry-wide event for getting under 18s to be recognised for the amazing content that they're making out there. There's lots of podcasts going on, there's lots of school radio stations. We've just finished the second year, rather we did in March. It was our first virtual event and we had 4,000 people tuning in, probably because of teen pop sensation Harvey, but you know, there were still a lot of people who, and that age group, who are really enthusiastic about careers in radio, in audio. We've been pretty blown away by the response to this, and we're about to launch again for the next year, so watch this space. But I think again it's all about attracting that amazing talent out there into the industry of radio and audio. So, I mean, that sounds very grand, doesn't it? Radio's most important role, but I really do think that radio has come to the fore during this period when the country has been going through something of a crisis, because of its ability to be at the same time incredibly intimate and yet makes you feel as if you're part of a much broader experience. And it's one of the reasons why we've done so well during the pandemic, and we've been amazed at the fantastic broadcasts, quality of broadcast that's been going out across all the airwaves. Anyway, that's enough from me. There's a canter through some of the things we've been doing during the last 6 to 10 months, but I just want to end on a note of some famous faces saying a really big thank you to their listeners.
Over the last few months, as we've all been living through strange times,
I have felt quite honoured to be a voice in the corner of kitchens, in bedrooms and makeshift offices all across the UK.
Radio is such a special medium.
And as a presenter, I have the amazing experience of being able to share my afternoon with a fab group of people, except for Wes. We get to choose to come together in the pursuit of great music and loads of laughter.
They know my life, I know theirs, and there is no platform that connects people quite like radio. It is uniquely intimate, whilst also being a powerful shared experience.
Since the pandemic has struck, radio has been there for me and so many others when we've needed it most.
So I just want to say thank you to all those of you who've tuned in to my programs and the 50 million people who listen to radio every single week.
Thank you for tuning in.